Picture this. It's the summer of 1853. You're standing on a quiet, breezy beach in Japan, a country that has literally locked its doors to the outside world for over 2 centuries. Suddenly, massive, pitch-black shadows loom on the horizon. 4 gigantic steamships, spewing thick black smoke, are forcing their way into your waters. This was Commodore Perry's famous fleet of black ships. To the Japanese people at the time, this was absolutely terrifying. It was honestly like alien spaceships dropping out of the sky. Today we're taking a deep dive into the story of Nakajima Saburosuke, the last samurai to serve the old government and a man who, instead of panicking during this desperate crisis, decided to jump straight into the belly of the beast. So put yourself in their shoes for a second. What would you actually do if these massive, heavily armed, alien-looking ships just suddenly appeared on your shores? And remember, you've got nothing to defend yourself with but a tiny wooden boat and a sword at your hip. You'd probably panic, right? Or just completely despair. But not our guy, Nakajima. Facing this overwhelming invading force, he decided to fight back, using quick thinking and one incredibly brilliant, rebellious lie. To really get why this was so insane, you have to understand the massive technological gap here. You've got the U.S. block ships on one side, gigantic steam-powered monsters packed with heavy, destructive cannons. And on the other side, Japanese coastal defenses consisting of tiny, hand-rowed wooden boats, and maybe some outdated muskets if they were lucky. If a fight broke out, it would be a bloodbath in seconds. That absolute terror, that massive gap in technology, is exactly where our story kicks off.
Chapter 1. The Bold Spy.
Nakajima Saburosuke decides he's going to take matters into his own hands. At the time, his job title was Yoriki. Basically, think of it as a mid-ranking Coast Guard officer. He definitely wasn't some top-level government official. But the Americans were playing hardball. They essentially said, "We are here to deliver a letter from the President of the United States. Bring us your highest-ranking official, or we aren't talking." Obviously, a mid-level guy like Nakajima had absolutely no clearance to set foot on those ships. But this is where Nakajima pulls off something legendary. He looks them right in the eye and says, "I am the vice commander." He completely fabricated a fake top-tier title just to bluff his way in. He figured if he didn't lie to get on board and figure out exactly what the enemy was capable of, his country was doomed. And guess what? The crazy bluff actually worked. They let him board the heavily armed U.S. flagship, the Susquehanna. He became the first Japanese person to step onto a foreign warship. Once he's on the deck of the Susquehanna, surrounded by American soldiers literally glaring at him in combat readiness, Nakajima doesn't flinch. He just casually starts walking around, acting like a totally brazen spy right in front of them. He's measuring their heavy cannons, he's visually memorizing the intricate mechanics of the steam engine, and he's just relentlessly asking questions. What's this? How does that work? The American crew actually wrote down in their logs that they were kind of stunned, noting he was inspecting everything like a spy. He risked his life to memorize every single technological advantage they had.
Chapter 2. Building the Future.
When Nakajima gets back to shore, he knows one thing for sure. Wooden boats aren't going to cut it. Japan needs modern warships, and fast. So he transforms from a rogue spy into a visionary engineer. He immediately petitions the government, pleading with them to modernize their defenses. And amazingly, he manages to get them to lift a 200-year-old ban on building large ships. Then, acting as the lead engineer, he takes all that stolen intel and builds Japan's very first Western-style warship, the Houou Maru. And he did it from scratch in just 9 months. It's an unbelievable speed for a country that hadn't built a large ship in centuries. And he didn't stop there. By 1860, his engineering genius led him to build Japan's very first dry dock in Uraga, which is a massive facility for repairing ships. He actually used it to perfectly repair the legendary Houou Maru ship before it sailed across the Pacific. Nakajima became a top-tier naval instructor. He was so respected that even his fierce political rivals begged to become his students. He was literally building the future of Japan with his bare hands. Chapter 3. The Last Stand. But history can be brutal, and the era of the samurai was rapidly coming to a violent end. Fast forward 15 years from when the black ships first arrived to 1868. The old shogunate government collapses entirely. Finding himself without a place in this new, modern Japan he helped create, Nakajima flees to the freezing northern territory of Hakodate with a rebel fleet. This was it, a final, desperate battle to protect his pride as a samurai. In Hakodate, Nakajima was put in charge of defending a frontline garrison called Chiyogaoka. Now, I want you to really picture this. He wasn't there alone. He brought his 2 sons with him into this nightmare scenario. His eldest son, Kotaro, was only 22, and his second son, Ijiro, was just 19. Teenagers and young guys, barely older than some of you watching this, standing alongside their dad, ready to fight a massive, highly advanced, modernized army. Things quickly turned hopeless. His own allies told him to retreat, and the enemy sent letters begging him to just surrender. But Nakajima flat out refused. His response was chilling. He simply said, "I choose this land as my grave." It wasn't about just being stubborn. It was about an unbreakable code of honor. He had chosen his path, and he was going to stay utterly loyal to his beliefs and his old government, to the very bitter end. Epilogue. Enduring Legacy. On May 16, 1869, following a massive assault by the new government's forces, Nakajima and his two young sons fell in battle. It was a tragically poetic end for the genius engineer who birthed Japan's modern navy. Right before he died, he sent a letter to his mother containing a death poem. It translates to, "Like a cuckoo, I too spit blood." There's an old legend that the cuckoo bird cries until it coughs up blood. He was saying that his heart was literally breaking, bleeding with the pain of leaving his family behind and watching his country tear itself apart. Underneath the armor and the brilliant mind, he was an incredibly sensitive, deeply feeling human being. He also left behind one final, heartbreaking letter for his youngest son, Yosohachi, who was only 3 years old at the time. In it, he essentially tells the toddler to grow up strong and repay the kindness of others in his place. It's a striking contrast. You have this fierce, defiant warrior making his last stand, but in his final moments, he's just a loving dad, terrified for his baby's future. And beautifully enough, that 3-year-old boy would eventually grow up to become a highly respected vice admiral in the Japanese Navy. Nakajima may have died that day, but his dream absolutely didn't. Decades later, his former friends, students, and even the very enemies who fought against him came together. They protected his surviving family and built the massive Uraga dock, along with a monument in his honor. That shipyard stood for over a century as a towering symbol of the modern Japan he envisioned. He quite literally engineered the future of the nation. Nakajima Saburosuke was a genius who fearlessly boarded an alien ship to steal its secrets, and a fiercely loyal samurai who died fighting for his fading world alongside his sons. Our world today is changing at lightning speed too, just like it was back then. So it leaves you with a pretty heavy question to think about. When the world around you completely changes, what will you stay loyal to? Thanks for hanging out with us for this story. See you next time.